Good morning, students. Now, here we have the summary of Act 5, Scene 1 of The Tempest. So, let us go through the summary first before we proceed with the text. In this act, there is just one scene, and let us see what happens in this act. In this act, Ariel tells Prospero that the day has reached its sixth hour. That means it is 6 pm. That is, it is evening time, when Ariel is allowed to stop working. Prospero acknowledges Ariel's request and asks how the king and his followers, king here refers to Alonso, king of Naples, and his followers means all those who are with the king, the royal party. How are they faring? Ariel tells them that they are currently imprisoned as Prospero ordered in a groove. What is a groove? A groove is a forest full of trees. Generally fruit bearing trees, but sometimes non fruit bearing trees also. Now, Alonso, Antonio, and Sebastian are mad with fear, and Gonzalo, Ariel says, cries constantly. So, Gonzalo is the one who is actually suffering, the rest are mad with fear. And Prospero tells Ariel to go release the men, and now alone on the stage, he delivers his famous soliloquy in which he gives up magic. His famous soliloquy, that is a speech given by Prospero alone standing on the stage when no other characters are present. So the role played by William Shakespeare was the role of Prospero, and he was now speaking to his audience. So on one hand, it was Prospero speaking about his exploits and about his future plans, and on the other hand, it was also William Shakespeare who was trying to give this message across to his audience that he would soon quit the business of writing plays and acting in them, and would go back to his hometown. So he decides to give up magic. Now, this magic has two senses. One is that it is the character Prospero who decides to give up his magical tricks, his liberal art, and decides to become a normal person, and once again become the Duke of Milan as he used to be 12 years ago. And on the other hand, it is William Shakespeare who says he is going to give up his magic of writing such wonderful plays and attracting the audience. People just loved his plays. So he says this magic is now about to be over. He will give up his career and he will go back to his hometown. He has had enough of his stay in London. He says he will perform his last task and then break his staff and drown his magic book. So staff is the magic stick of Prospero, and the book is the book of liberal art, which is actually Prospero's real power. Ariel now enters with Alonso and his companions, who have been charmed and obediently stand in a circle. Still, the spell is on them, so they cannot do anything by themselves unless they are prompted to do something. Ariel has cast this spell on them, and now they are standing obediently in a circle. So it is the time for the showdown. Prospero speaks to them in their charmed state, praising Gonzalo for his loyalty and chiding means scolding the others for their treachery. He then sends Ariel to his cell to fetch the clothes he once wore as Duke of Milan. Ariel goes and returns immediately to help his master put on the garments. Prospero promises to grant freedom to his loyal helper Spirit and sends him to fetch the boatswain and the mariners from the wrecked ship. Actually, the ship was never wrecked. Though it is mentioned as the wrecked ship here, the ship was never wrecked. As we already know, it has been kept safe and sound, protected from the winds and the storms in a harbor near the Bermudas. And from near the Bermuda Islands, this ship, within the fraction of a second, is brought to this uninhabited island, to the coast of this uninhabited island, where Prospero and all others are present. Ariel goes to bring the ship. Prospero releases Alonso and his companions from their spell and speaks with them. He forgives Antonio, but demands that Antonio return his dukedom. Antonio does not respond and does not, in fact, say a word for the remainder of the play, except to note that Caliban is no doubt marketable. This is what he had said in Act 5, Scene 1, line number 269. When we read the text, you shall see. So he only thinks about making profit. He is very profit-oriented, business-minded person. He wanted to take over the dukedom of Milan and call himself the Duke because he wanted to make profit out of ruling over the subjects of Prospero by taxing them and by becoming rich. And even when he sees Caliban, his remark is that Caliban is marketable, meaning to say he is like a product. He can be sent to the market to earn some money. So with Caliban's appearance, he was really something amazing for the common people. So if he could be placed in the market, people would come and pay money to have a look at Caliban. So he thinks about Caliban in such terms. Alonso now tells Prospero of the missing Ferdinand, and Prospero tells Alonso that he too has lost a child in this last tempest. In this last storm, he too has lost his child, his daughter. Alonso continues to be racked with grief. Now Alonso is missing his son, and so he is full of sadness. Prospero then draws aside a curtain, revealing behind it Ferdinand and Miranda, who are playing a game of chess. Now chess? Why not any other game? Because the chess is a game which generally royal people play. It's all about king, and it's all about the bishop. It's all about, just as the terms used for describing the pieces of chess are similar to royal terms. And that's the reason why you can see that it's a royal game, and two royalties, a princess of Milan and the prince of Naples, are playing this game. Alonso is ecstatic at the discovery. When he sees his son, he is so overwhelmed with happiness. Meanwhile, the sight of more humans impresses Miranda. Now, you already know that Miranda had said earlier that apart from Prospero and the misshapen Caliban, she had never seen any other human being. So when she saw Ferdinand, it was love at first sight. But now she's amazed to see so many other human beings. Alonso embraces his son and daughter-in-law to be and begs Miranda's forgiveness for the treacheries of 12 years ago. That means whatever he had done to Prospero and his daughter 12 years ago, he apologizes for it. He's so happy to know that his son is wanting to marry Miranda, and Miranda is a princess, so there is no problem in this marriage because Ferdinand, being a prince, has chosen a princess to get married. So he repents, he apologizes. And this insists that the reconciliation is complete. After arriving with the boatswain and mariners, Ariel is sent to fetch Caliban. In the meantime, Ariel returns, as I told you, with the ship, the royal ship, and also all the sailors on board, and even the boatswain and the master of the ship. Nothing had actually happened to them, not a hair perished, if I may quote Shakespeare, as Ariel had mentioned to Prospero after having caused the tempest. The tempest was the beginning of all these incidents in the play. So the play is titled The Tempest because it was the tempest which initiated the purgation and the punishment of those who were at fault. So he fetches the ship, he fetches the mariners, he fetches the boatswain in that, and also the master of the ship. Now Ariel goes to fetch Caliban, Trinculo and Stefano, which he speedily does. The three drunken thieves are sent to Prospero's cell to return the clothing they stole and to clean it in preparation for the evening's reveling. Reveling means enjoyment, celebration. Prospero then invites Alonso and his company to stay the night. He will tell them the tale of his last 12 years, and in the morning they can all set out for Naples, where Miranda and Ferdinand will be married. After the wedding, Prospero will return to Milan, where he plans to contemplate the end of his life. So this is Prospero's plan, that I will tell you all that has happened, all the missing clues will fit in now as the clues of a jigsaw puzzle. I'll be explaining everything that you have experienced in this island ever since you landed up here. Come into my cell and make yourselves comfortable, and we will spend the night, because night is not the right time to begin our journey. Tomorrow morning we will set sail. The ship has been brought in. The mariners are here, boatswain, the master, everybody, and tomorrow we'll make the journey, voyage by sea, and then first we'll go to Milan, where the marriage of my daughter Miranda will be solemnized with your son Ferdinand, and after that I will go back to Milan. All this is said by Prospero. I will go back to Milan, and there I'll spend the rest of my days, the remaining days of my life, as the Duke of Milan. So this is his plan. And the last charge Prospero gives to Ariel, or the last responsibility or task which he gives to Ariel before setting him free, is to make sure the trip home is made on calm seas. Ariel has to ensure that their journey back home should happen without any trouble in the sea. There should be no storms, no tempests, no problems at all. It should be a smooth journey with auspicious gales, meaning to say with good supportive winds, so that the sails of the ship receive enough wind power to move quickly back to Naples. So this has been said in Act 5 Scene 1, line number 318. The other characters exit and Prospero delivers his epilogue. Okay, so now after this comes the delivery of the epilogue. Once everything is over, it's once again Prospero, or we may call him Shakespeare, coming onto the stage speaking to his audience. And this epilogue is something very different from the normal endings of other plays of William Shakespeare. You have done the Merchant of Venice in classes 9 and 10, but you didn't have an epilogue in that play. But this play has an epilogue, because this is the address through this play, through the character of Prospero, through Prospero's mouth, as I told you earlier also, that Shakespeare wants to speak to his audience and wants to make them know that he is ending his career as a playwright and as a director, producer and actor. He no longer wants to continue with this profession. It's time for him to call it the quits. He is retiring and going back to his hometown, Stratford. So this epilogue comes in, and this is what makes people, especially the critics of Shakespeare, say that Prospero is Shakespeare and Shakespeare is Prospero. You can get a 20 marks question based on this remark made by critics, that Prospero is indeed Shakespeare and Shakespeare is none other but Prospero in this play, The Tempest. So it is through Prospero that, in a way, William Shakespeare is speaking out what is in his heart. Earlier also he had said something concerning the globe, if you remember, when he had said that this great globe will also disappear one day, when the revelries which were arranged for Ferdinand and Miranda's entertainment just got over, just after the Mask of Juno. If you remember, he was saying this to Ferdinand. He was saying that don't be surprised, because one day this world will also come to an end. Now globe there meant world, but at the same time the theatre hall which belonged to Shakespeare, where all these plays were enacted, was also known as the Globe Theatres, and it is still there in London. It was burned down long after Shakespeare had actually quit and had gone back to Stratford. Globe Theatres, which was made of wood basically, there was a big fire, and then this theatre hall was completely burnt to ashes, and then no traces remained of the Globe Theatres. Then roads and streets and buildings came up, and everybody almost virtually forgot about the exact location of the Globe Theatres. Eventually, in the late 90s, I'm talking about 1990s, late 90s, they were digging the streets of London for sewage pipes. The municipal corporation was doing some digging work for laying pipes for sewage drainage, when they accidentally struck upon the remains of the Globe Theatres, and immediately the Shakespeare Society of London took interest in it, and all over the world there was a huge consensus built that this Globe Theatre should be rebuilt, and eventually using the remains which were dug up and making use of photographs, old photographs and sketches, whatever were there. In fact, photographs were not there much, sketches were there, and with the help of all these things, architects were called in, all the best architects were called in, and the Shakespeare Society itself was involved in it, and the new Globe Theatre Hall came up once again. And today, if you go to London, you can possibly visit the house where Shakespeare used to live, and the Globe Theatre, and you can also have a look at some of the original manuscripts which are on display. And Globe Theatre Hall is today used on a regular basis. Every day there is the staging of some play of William Shakespeare or the other. So people can go there, people can watch the performance of the modern actors who perform the different plays of Shakespeare in that three-sided stage, or rather open on three sides. The stage is the same as it used to be. They have made a concrete structure now, and it's a beautiful theatre hall. And the reference was to Globe. So you see, Globe meant Globe Theatre also. That's why I gave you all this reference, and that's the reason why I'm telling you all this. I would have told you this separately in the class, but since now it is not possible, I thought I should mention it in my video so that this knowledge should be there in your mind. And now he says that, he delivers the epilogue. He describes the loss of his magical powers. And he says, now my charms are all overthrown, and says that as he imprisoned Ariel and Caliban, the audience has now imprisoned him on the stage. He says that the audience can only release him by applauding. If you clap for me, my show will be over. As long as you don't clap for me, I cannot say goodbye. So please applaud, and asks them to remember that his only desire was to please them. He did not want to offend anyone. He just wanted to entertain his audience. He says that as his listeners would like to have their own crimes forgiven, they should forgive him and set him free by clapping. So this is the epilogue which comes at the end of the play, and with that the play comes to an end. Now we can safely proceed with the text of Act 5, Scene 1. So as we begin with Act 5, which has only one scene, let us first read the introduction of the scene and understand what is going to happen here. We will see the conclusion of the play coming up now, because the following action is already in progress, and we shall see how Prospero finally speaks to his defaulters and in what way he finally forgives everyone, and the play reaches a happy ending. So here you have on your screen Act 5, Scene 1, the text. And I have taken exact pages from your textbook so that there is no confusion and so that you can easily follow. Now please keep your textbooks open as I discuss this particular scene for you. Act 5, Scene 1, Introduction. Let's read what is given. Prospero decides to forgive his enemies if they are repentant. So it is a one-sided decision though, because among his enemies, at least his brother Antonio is not repentant. We shall see when we read further. We will understand that nowhere does Antonio ever say sorry to Prospero. Anyway, Prospero's goodness that he decides to forgive his offenders. He reminds Alonso of the cruel manner in which the latter treated him and Miranda. So this is the time for reminding people about their mistakes in the past. And so we have here Prospero reminding Alonso, the king of Naples, as to how he had in the past, that was 12 years ago, how he had treated him and his infant daughter Miranda. He accuses Sebastian of his share in the intrigue, and he also accuses or puts the blame on Sebastian, who is Alonso's younger brother, that even he was involved in that humiliation inflicted upon him and his daughter by Alonso. So he is pointing out everyone's folly, everyone's past errors and mistakes and offenses. He calls Antonio an unnatural brother who, for the sake of his ambition, expelled natural affection from his heart. So he does not spare his own brother even, and he says to Antonio his brother that he has really behaved in a very unnatural manner, most unlike the manner in which a younger brother should behave with his own sibling, his elder brother. So he points that out to Antonio also. So you can see that in this scene, step by step, Prospero is speaking to each and everyone, those who have been bad in the past and those who have been good. They are all being addressed one by one. So it is Antonio next, and after that he says he pays a tribute to Gonzalo for his sympathetic nature. So he does not forget to pay his tribute to Gonzalo, who had been very sympathetic towards him and his daughter. You remember that when you were in class 11, when I was teaching Tempest first time, there was this scene where Miranda was wanting to know from Prospero about their past history, and it was then that Antonio had, Prospero had told Miranda all about what had happened 12 years ago. And in that episode, there was this Gonzalo too, who had been mentioned, and Prospero always has high regard for Gonzalo, because Gonzalo was the person who had sympathetically treated Prospero, and his daughter had provided him with his books, which he considered to be his treasure. So this was Gonzalo's goodness, and Prospero, after all these years, more than a decade, he has still not forgotten the past favors done by Gonzalo. So he thanks Gonzalo. And then he reveals his true identity. Eventually, after saying all this, Prospero reveals his true identity, that he is Prospero, the exiled Duke of Milan, who was expelled from Milan, exiled from Milan by his treacherous brother with the help of Alonso, the king of Naples. So Prospero now also relents towards Caliban, Stefano and Trinculo. Now, after revealing himself, Prospero has also something to say about Caliban, particularly because he treated him with so much of kindness, but Caliban never returned that kindness in the way Prospero had expected. And also Stefano and Trinculo, who joined Caliban to plot against Prospero's life. And it is decided that all should sail for Naples the next morning, from where, after attending the marriage of Ferdinand and Miranda, Prospero proposes to go to his native Milan. So the plan now for the future is that next morning they would all sail once again. The ships actually the royal vessel has actually not been destroyed, as we already know, and this royal vessel will be brought back to the shore of this uninhabited island with the help of Ariel, and all the crew members are actually safe and sound, as Ariel had reported earlier that not a hair perished, nobody has been harmed, and these sailors, these mariners were actually kept asleep. Ariel had induced magical sleep upon them, so that they were all sleeping inside the ship, and when they wake up they discover that the ship is just fine as it was, and they are all alive and nothing has happened to the ship or the equipment, and even the boatswain and the master of the ship, they also find themselves alive and fine. So next morning, the plan is that the next morning the entire royal party, including Prospero and Miranda, would set sail for Naples. They would first go to Naples, where the marriage of Ferdinand and Miranda would be actually solemnized in a royal manner, and after that, once he has ensured that his daughter has got married to Ferdinand, Prospero proposes to go back to his Milan, his dukedom Milan. So now let's begin with the text of Act 5, Scene 1 of The Tempest. Now here, Scene 1, before Prospero's cell, enter Prospero in his magic robes and Ariel. So first and foremost, we see the entry of Prospero. He is still wearing his magic robes, and he is also accompanied by Ariel. Prospero says, "Now does my project gather to a head. My charms crack not, my spirits obey, and time goes upright with his carriage. Meaning to say that now my undertaking, whatever project I had undertaken, is almost coming to the climax or gathering to the head. That means the climax. My spirits obey, and time goes upright with his carriage. Meaning to say that my spirits are obeying me, and here spirits will mean both Prospero's inner spirits, that is his feelings, his emotions, his sentiments, and his urge to go ahead with whatever he has planned. And it also refers to the spirits who are commanded by him, mainly Ariel. And time goes upright with his carriage, meaning to say time is marching on to take me to the climax. How's the day? So what is the time of the day? What time is it? Ariel says, on the 6th hour, at which time, my lord, you said our work would cease. It is the 6th hour of the day, meaning to say it's 6 p.m. It's evening 6 p.m. and you had said, my lord, that our activities would come to an end when it is 6 o'clock. So Ariel is constantly reminding Prospero about the fact that Prospero has promised to release him from his duties and responsibilities. So Prospero says, I did say so when first I raised the tempest. Yes, of course I said that. I had said that when I asked you to create the storm. So I really did say so when I raised the tempest. Say, my spirit, how fares the king and his followers? So tell me, my spirit, asking Ariel, what is the news of the king and his companions? Ariel says, confined together in the same fashion as you gave in charge. Well, according to your orders, I have imprisoned them. They are all together, but they are not able to move. Just as you left them, all prisoners, sir, in the lime grove. So they are all prisoners in the grove of lime trees. So there was this grove of or forest of lime trees or lemon trees, and they are all prisoners in that lime grove, which weather fends your cell. So it is that lime grove which protects or rather protests them from rough weather. Actually it should be protects. I think there is some mistake in the spelling. So anyway, your cell is protected by that grove of lime trees, and they are all imprisoned inside that grove. They cannot budge until, that is, till you release. That means they cannot even move till you release them. The king, his brothers, his brother and yours. So not only the king, also his brother Sebastian and even your brother Antonio. Abide all three distracted. So as we have already discussed in the summary part, that these three are totally distracted, they are scared, they are amazed, and they are really scared out of their wits. And the remainder mourning over them, and the rest of them. So these three are behaving like mad. And the others in the group, they are feeling upset to see them behave in such a mad manner. They are repenting and grieving over their king and the two princes. That is, one is the Duke of Milan, the unlawful Duke of Milan, that is Antonio, and the other one is Sebastian, the brother of Alonso. So the rest of the royal party, they are very upset to see the strange behavior of their king and also the two princes. Brimful of sorrow and dismay. So they are brimful, full to the brim. Brim means the very edge or the tip. So they are full of sorrow, so full that they have, if we imagine sorrow to be filled inside a cup or a container, then the sorrow has reached to the uppermost level. So brimful of sorrow. But chiefly him that you termed, sir, that good old Lord Gonzalo. But then the biggest, the greatest or the most intense amount of sorrow and grief can be observed in that particular aged gentleman called Gonzalo. So good old Lord Gonzalo, as you have termed him earlier. So these are the exact lines, or rather the words, in which Prospero had earlier described Gonzalo. So of them all, Gonzalo is the one who is the saddest. His tears run down his beard like winter's drops, and his tears seem to flow down his beard like the drops of winter. Winter's drops, icicles melting into water. So what happens in winter? Because of the freezing cold outside, droplets of water freeze into ice as they try to come down the slopes of the roofs of houses, and so you can see them forming at the edge of the sloping roofs of houses in cold places. So these are known as icicles. So the same could be said about Gonzalo's tears. He is weeping so much that it seems that from his eyes and down along his beard, it seems that the water or his tears are flowing like icicles when they start melting and when they start dripping. So this is the comparison used here. So with that, we come to the end of the first page, that is page 105 of Act 5 Scene 1. So for today we will stop here, and we will continue with page 106 onwards, that is Act 5 Scene 1 will continue in our next Tempest class. So I hope I have been able to give you a synopsis and explain to you the entire scene in a summary, and also I hope I have been able to explain the lines that you see on your screen right now of the first page of Act 5 Scene 1. So we'll stop here. Thank you very much.